All right, so you're here. You want to get smarter about how the world works. You want to do that without like drowning in information.
Yeah, and you want to do it kind of quickly too, right?
Quickly, yeah, absolutely. Exactly. So we figured, why not a deep dive into Rand Fishkin's Lost and Founder?
Good book.
It's a good one, and it's by Rand Fishkin, the co-founder of Moz.
Yeah, a lot of people in digital marketing, especially SEO, really respect his work,
Yeah, he doesn't pull any punches. He's very straight talking.
which is refreshing.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. So that's what we're going to do too today.
Exactly.
So in this deep dive, we are going to pull out the most like practical, the most useful insights from his experience.
the things you can really use, yeah.
So you can get a grasp on what it really takes to build a business.
Not the hype, not the fairy tales,
Yeah, no sugarcoating.
just the real deal.
Exactly. And so we've actually broken down this deep dive into 7 key themes that Rand explores.
7. Yeah, we really wanted to make sure we covered the most important stuff.
Yeah, we did.
Things that people are really going to get a lot out of.
Absolutely.
So, like, you don't have to read the whole book.
Think of it as a cheat sheet.
Exactly. A shortcut.
So first up, we're going to look at the realities of the startup landscape.
Right, we need to clear away some of those myths first.
Yeah, get rid of those rose-colored glasses.
See what's really going on.
And then from there, we are going to look at the actual journey of building Moz from its very humble beginnings.
Like from zero.
From zero.
Yeah.
And then after that, it is venture capital.
Ah, yes, the money.
Yes.
But also the
The double-edged sword.
double-edged sword.
Absolutely. We'll also spend some time looking at the importance of company culture and your core values.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, that's often overlooked.
It is.
People jump to the money and the product and forget the people.
Exactly.
Right.
Then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of navigating growth.
The scaling up part.
Yeah. How do you do that? How do you do that well?
That's where a lot of businesses stumble.
They do. They figure out the early stuff, but then when it's time to grow.
It all falls apart.
Yeah.
From there, we're going to talk about being transparent and honest.
Which can be scary for some people.
It can be.
They're used to keeping things close to the vest.
Yeah, but Rand's very much an advocate for that.
Yeah, he's got good reasons for it.
Yeah, he does. And then finally, we're going to synthesize some of the most important lessons that he's learned throughout his entire journey.
Yeah, we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaways, the things people can really learn from.
Exactly. So it promises to be a very candid and insightful exploration of all things startup.
Real talk.
Real talk, yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, so why don't we start with myth busting?
Yeah, let's talk about those myths.
Because there are a lot of those when it comes to startup.
Oh, yeah. You know those stories, those overnight success stories?
Mm.
The founder who just effortlessly achieves massive valuations.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Headlines, magazines,
Yeah.
podcasts. Everyone loves those stories.
They do. They paint this picture of, constant wins and exponential growth.
But Rand's book really pushes back against that.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to realize that those stories...
They're the exceptions.
Yeah,
They're not the rule.
absolutely not.
Most businesses don't work that way.
No, so one of the big myths is this idea that rapid growth and those huge valuations are the norm.
Right. Everyone thinks they're going to be a unicorn.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
become a unicorn overnight.
Like it's easy.
Yeah.
It just happens.
But Rand really stresses that, for most startups, focusing on steady, manageable growth.
Yeah, the kind of growth you can actually sustain. That's much more realistic.
Yeah, and probably more achievable in the long run.
And it's probably better for the business, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's healthier.
Healthier, yeah.
I think you avoid a lot of those pitfalls that come with
Trying to grow too fast.
growing too fast.
Yeah.
And I think it just puts less pressure on the founders and the team as a whole.
Definitely when you're not constantly chasing those crazy growth numbers.
Right. You can focus on building something
Solid.
solid.
Yeah.
That's
That's
real
actually
cool.
going to last.
Exactly. And then on the flip side of that, you have this whole myth of personal sacrifice,
Oh, the hustle.
the
The
hustle.
grind.
Yeah, you're not successful unless you're working 80 hours a week and you're, sleep deprived.
And you haven't seen your family in months.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and Rand's pretty clear that that's...
Not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. It's not healthy.
It's going to burn you out.
He will, yeah.
And it's not good for your mental health.
He talks about that. He talks about his own experience with that.
Yeah, he's very honest about the toll it took on him.
Yeah, and I think that's really valuable for people to hear because
It normalizes it.
it
He
does.
says it's okay to struggle.
Yeah, and that, taking care of yourself
is important.
It's so important.
It's not optional.
Yeah, you can't just like push it off until later. You have to
You have to make it a priority
Yeah, you have to make it priority.
from the beginning.
Absolutely. And then there's this kind of related myth, I guess.
What's that?
The myth of like projecting perfect progress.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's got to look like they're killing it
Right, all the time.
all the time, no matter what's really happening behind the scenes.
Exactly. And Rand is like completely against that.
Yeah. He's like, be real, be
Be
authentic,
transparent.
even when it's tough.
Yeah, even when you're struggling, even when you make mistakes.
Because that's how you build trust
It is.
with your investors, with your employees, with the market.
Absolutely. And it just makes you more credible.
People can smell a fake a mile away.
They can.
But when you're real, when you're honest,
We respect that.
they respect that, they trust you more.
Yeah, and it also, I think, helps you build a stronger culture internally.
Definitely.
So it's not just about like being a good person or whatever. It's actually like
a smart business strategy.
yeah, long term. Yeah, it is. So I guess the main takeaway from all of this is just to like
Be realistic.
be realistic.
Be honest with yourself.
Yeah, and don't buy into those like
Fairy tales.
fairy tales. Yeah, those like
Myths.
yeah, the hype.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to like the actual journey of building Moz.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty gritty.
Chapter 2, From Zero to Moz.
Yeah, and this is where you really see how different the reality is from those like polished success stories.
Yeah, he talks about the very early days.
The very early days.
It was humble.
Humbles is a good word for it.
Yeah, it was an SEO consultancy that he started
With his mom.
with his mom.
Which is amazing.
It is.
Not your typical startup story.
No, not at all. And they were bootstrapping.
Big time.
Yeah, big time. Like,
Every penny counted.
yeah, they were really,
Scraping by.
yeah,
Making tough choices.
making tough choices.
Yeah.
And I think a really important lesson that came out of that
Yeah.
was
Resilience.
resilience,
Right.
like not just surviving,
Not just getting through it.
but like actually,
Learning from it.
yeah,
Adapting.
yeah,
And thriving.
thriving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think anyone who's ever like
Face a challenge
faced a setback.
can relate to.
Absolutely.
He also talks about all the like technical and operational challenges they faced.
Yeah, because there was no roadmap.
There was no roadmap.
They were figuring it out as they went along.
Making it up.
Making it up.
Yeah.
And so it was just constant iteration.
Constant iterations.
Not just with the product,
Yeah. Which came later,
which came later.
but with the whole business model.
Yeah, like how they were actually going to make money.
Yeah. Because they started as a blog and a consultancy.
Right.
And then
They evolved.
They evolved into a software company.
Yeah, it was a pretty big pivot.
It was a big pivot. And it was driven by the community.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting about it is that it wasn't like some grand plan.
No.
They were listening to their audience.
They were paying attention to what people needed. And they were flexible enough to like
change course.
change course. Yeah.
Adapt.
Yeah. And that's huge.
That's huge, yeah.
I think a lot of businesses
Are not good at that.
they're not good at that. They get stuck in their ways.
Yeah, they're like, this is our plan. We're sticking to it.
No matter what.
No matter what,
Yeah.
even if it's not working.
And then it wasn't just the business hurdles.
No.
Rand is very open about the personal toll it took on him.
Yeah, the stress, the self-doubt, the periods of depression.
Yeah, it's not all sunshine and roses.
It's not all sunshine and roses. It's really tough.
It is, and it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, because it's real.
Yeah, it's real.
And a lot of people are going through it.
Yeah, and they don't talk about it.
They don't talk about it.
But he also talks about the importance of community.
Yeah, the SEO community really rallied around them.
They did. They were so supportive.
Share their knowledge, their experiences.
Helped them out.
Yeah,
And that was huge for Moz.
huge. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess the takeaway from this chapter is that
Building a startup is hard.
it's hard.
It's really hard.
It's not glamorous.
It's not glamorous.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
But it can be.
Incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. If you're resilient.
If you're resilient.
If you're adaptable.
If you're adaptable.
And if you make smart decisions.
Smart decisions
Yeah.
along the way.
Along the way.
Okay, so let's talk about money.
Let's talk about money.
Chapter 3,
Venture capital.
the double-edged sword of funding.
It is a double-edged sword.
It really is. On the one hand,
It's very appealing,
it is.
right? You get a huge influx of cash.
You do.
You can hire more people. You can build out your product. You can really scale your marketing.
Yeah, you can do a lot of things that you couldn't do before.
It can really accelerate your growth.
It can.
And that's what a lot of startups are looking for.
Yeah, they want to grow fast.
They want to grow fast.
They want to be the next big thing.
The next unicorn.
Yeah.
Um, but Rand also points out
The downsides,
the downside.
because there are downsides.
There are.
And one of the biggest ones is the pressure
The pressure to grow.
to grow at all costs.
Yeah. Like crazy growth.
Yeah, because VCs, they want to see a return on their investment.
And they want to see it fast.
They want to see it fast.
Yeah.
And so that can lead to some unhealthy behaviors.
It can. Yeah, like prioritizing growth over profitability.
Yeah, or even over like building a good product.
Or finding product market fit.
Yeah, it's all about the numbers.
Yeah, and it can just create a lot of stress.
A lot of stress.
For everyone involved.
Yeah.
And he talks about his own experience with this at Moz.
Yeah, he says that the funding definitely helped them achieve certain milestones.
It allowed them to grow faster.
It allowed them to grow faster.
They were able to do more things.
But it also came with that pressure.
That pressure to grow.
Yeah, to always be growing.
To always be growing, to hit those numbers.
Yeah, and that's not always sustainable
It's not.
or healthy for the business or for the people.
And then the other big downside is the impact on control.
Yeah, you give up a lot of control when you take VC money.
You do. You're essentially giving up
Equity.
ownership of your company.
Yeah, and decision-making power.
Yeah, because now you have a board of directors.
And they have their own agenda.
They do. And it's usually driven by the investors.
Yeah,
So you might find yourself making decisions,
that you wouldn't have made otherwise.
yeah, that don't align with your vision for the company.
Right,
But you have to do it because
because you need the money
you need the money
to grow.
to grow.
Yeah, so it's a trade-off.
It's a big trade-off.
A big trade-off.
And you have to go into it with your eyes open.
Absolutely. You have to really weigh the pros and the cons
And make sure it's the right decision for you
and for your company.
and for your company.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to something a little less stressful.
Okay.
Chapter 4, Culture and Values.
Oh, I like this one. Me too. This is one of my favorites.
This is a good one.
Yeah, because it's all about the people.
It is.
And Rand is a big believer in building a strong company culture.
Yeah, he says it's one of the most important things you can do.
More important than
More important than
the product.
the product.
More important than the marketing.
Even than the money.
Even than the
He describes it as the personality of the organization.
I love that.
Me too. It's such a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's like, what makes your company unique?
Yeah, what makes it special?
What makes people want to work there
And stay there
and stay there?
and do their best work.
Exactly.
And he talks about how they were very intentional about building a strong culture at Moz.
It wasn't just something that happened by accident
No, it was a very deliberate effort
from the beginning.
from the beginning.
Yeah.
And they had this acronym,
TAG-E.
TAG EE.
Yeah, it stands for transparent, authentic, generous, fun, empathetic, and exceptional.
It's a mouthful.
It is, but it's good.
It is. It's good. Yeah.
And these weren't just like words on a wall.
No, they actually lived by these values.
They infused them into everything they did.
Yeah, like their decision-making processes,
Their product
your
development,
communication,
how they treated their employees,
how they treated their customers,
everything.
everything. Yeah. And transparency was like a really big one for them.
Huge.
Huge. They were open with their employees,
Customer.
the whole industry.
Yeah, they weren't afraid to share information.
Even sensitive information.
Yeah, like their financials.
Their financials. Yeah, they would publish their revenue numbers, their growth rates,
It even talked about their challenges.
the things that weren't going well.
Yeah, and that's pretty unusual.
Yeah, it is. Most companies are very secretive about that kind of stuff.
They want to project an image of success,
Right.
even if it's not real.
Yeah.
But Moz was different.
They were different. Yeah. And it built a lot of trust.
It did.
People respected them for it.
They did.
And then they were also very empathetic and generous.
Yeah, they really cared about their customers.
They did.
They wanted to help them succeed.
Yeah. They had this amazing customer service.
Yeah, they would go above and beyond
Yeah.
to solve problems.
And they were generous with their knowledge.
They were always sharing what they knew.
They were always teaching.
Yeah.
And they didn't forget to have fun.
No, they made sure work was enjoyable.
They did. They had a lot of like team building activities.
They had a cool office space.
Yeah, it was a very creative environment.
Yeah.
But Rand also talks about the challenges of maintaining culture as you grow.
Yeah, because it gets harder
It does.
when you have more people,
More people,
more offices.
more locations.
Yeah, it's harder to keep everyone on the same page,
Yes.
to make sure everyone understands the values,
And lives by them.
lives by them.
Yeah.
So you have to be even more intentional about it.
You do.
You have to make it a priority
Yeah, you have to keep reinforcing it.
over and over again.
Yeah.
But he offers some good advice for doing that.
He does.
Like, first of all, the leadership team has to set the example.
Yeah, they have to actually live the values.
They can't just talk about them.
No, they have to walk the walk.
They have to walk the walk.
Yeah.
And then you have to keep revisiting the values.
Regularly.
Regularly.
Yeah, like in meetings,
Then onboarding.
performance reviews.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Make sure they're always top of mind.
Yeah, so people don't forget.
Yeah, because it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day
It is.
and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Yeah. The why.
The why.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the key takeaway from this chapter is that
Culture is crucial.
culture is crucial.
It's the foundation of a successful company.
Yeah, if you want to build something that lasts,
Something that people are proud to be a part of.
you have to invest in your culture.
You have to.
You can't just ignore it.
No.
Okay, so let's talk about growth.
Chapter 5, navigating growth.
Yeah, scaling up.
The fun part.
It can be fun.
It can be fun. It can also be
A nightmare
a nightmare. Yeah.
if you're not careful.
Yeah, if you don't do it right.
Yeah.
But Rand really emphasizes that it's not just about getting bigger.
No, it's about getting bigger in a way that
That makes sense.
makes sense. Yeah.
That's sustainable.
Sustainable.
That doesn't like destroy your company.
Yeah, you don't want to grow so fast that you break everything.
Exactly.
Right.
And he talks about how Moz struggled with this.
Yeah, they had a lot of growing pains.
They did. They grew really fast.
Really fast.
And they ran into a lot of challenges.
Yeah, like maintaining product quality.
Yeah, as they were adding more users.
More user.
They were also adding more features.
More features.
And it became harder to...
keep everything working smoothly
Yeah.
and to keep everyone happy.
Yeah. And they also had to deal with technical debt
Yeah, that's the stuff that builds up when you're moving fast.
when you're cutting corners.
Yeah, you're like, we'll fix that later.
Yeah, and then later never comes back.
And then later never comes, and it comes back to bite you.
It does.
Yeah.
And so they had to like shift their approach.
Yeah, they had to slow down a bit,
Yeah, be more deliberate.
more strategic,
Yeah, and focus on sustainable growth.
instead of just chasing
Sanity.
metrics,
Yeah.
the big numbers that don't actually mean anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they also had challenges with hiring and retaining talent.
Yeah. As they grew,
Mm-hmm.
they needed more specialized skills
Yeah. They needed people who could do things that,
that they couldn't do themselves.
yeah,
And those people are hard to find.
they are.
And they're expensive.
They are.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about finding people with the right skills.
No, it was also about finding people who fit the culture.
Who would be a good fit for the team?
Yeah. Because you can have the smartest people in the world.
But if they're not a good fit,
They're going to cause problems.
they will. Yeah.
You're going to be disruptive.
Yeah, they're not going to be happy.
They're not going to be happy.
And no one else is going to be happy. Yeah.
So they really focused on onboarding,
Making sure new hires understood the culture,
the values.
the values,
Yeah.
and how things worked at Moz.
Yeah, and then they also had to deal with the financial complexities of scaling.
Yeah. Managing cash flow becomes a lot more complicated when you're bigger.
It does. And you're making bigger investments.
Bigger investments.
Yeah, and you're also dealing with
Investors.
investors,
Yeah.
who have their own expectations.
Yeah. They want to see a return on their investment.
And they want to see it fast.
You want to see it fast.
Yeah, so there's that pressure to...
Grow.
Yeah,
Which can sometimes conflict with your long-term vision.
you can. Yeah.
So you have to be really careful
You do. You have to make sure you're making decisions that are good for the business
in the long run.
in the long run.
Yeah.
Not just in the short term.
Not just to please the investors.
Yeah.
Right.
And then as they grew, they also had to figure out how to maintain customer relationships.
Yeah, because they had a lot more customers. And those customers had
Different needs,
different needs.
different expectations.
Yeah.
And it's harder to give everyone
Personalized attention.
personalized attention
Yeah.
when you have thousands of customers instead of hundreds.
Right.
So they had to find ways to scale their customer service.
Yeah, and do it in a way that didn't feel
Impersonal,
impersonal. Yeah, they still wanted to provide that.
human touch.
Yeah.
That personal connection
Yeah,
that they were known for. So they
Yeah.
had to get creative.
they did.
Yeah.
And Rand also talks about his own personal growth during this time.
Yeah. He had to learn how to be a different kind of leader,
Yeah, he had to learn how to delegate.
to trust his team,
Yeah,
to let go of some control.
yeah. Which is hard for a lot of founders,
It is.
especially founders who are used to doing everything themselves.
They're like, I can do it better.
I know I can do it better.
Yeah,
But he had to let go
he had to.
in order for the company to grow.
In order for the company to grow
Yeah.
and in order for him to grow
Yeah,
as a leader.
as a leader.
Yeah.
And he also talks about how they implemented agile methodologies.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other thing.
It is.
But it's a good thing.
It can be a good thing.
It can be a good thing.
Yeah, if you do it right.
If you do it right.
Yeah, it helped them become more efficient.
More responsive to customer needs.
Yeah, and just more agile overall.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the point.
Which is kind of the point.
Yeah.
So yeah, scaling is a challenge.
It's a huge challenge.
It's a huge challenge.
But it's also an opportunity to learn,
to grow,
to evolve
as a company.
As a company.
And as individuals.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to chapter 6.
Transparency and honesty.
Building trust in business.
Yeah, this is so important.
It's fundamental.
It is.
Yeah, you can't build a lasting business without trust.
You can't.
And you can't build trust without being transparent and honest.
Yeah.
And Rand really gets this.
He does. He made it a core part of Moz's DNA.
From the very beginning.
Yeah. He was like, we're going to be open about everything.
Warts and all.
Warts and all.
Yeah.
And they were really transparent about their financials.
Yeah, they shared their revenue numbers, their growth rates.
Even when things weren't going so well.
They didn't try to hide it.
They didn't try to sugarcoat it.
No, they were just honest.
Yeah.
And that built a lot of trust with their employees.
Yeah, because it made them feel like
they were part of something.
Part of something bigger, yeah.
Like they were in the loop.
Yeah, they weren't being kept in the dark.
Yeah. And it also built trust with their customers.
Yeah, because it showed that they were
human.
Human.
They weren't just a faceless corporation.
Right. They were real people.
Real people with real problems.
Yeah.
Just like their customers.
And they were also transparent about their decision making.
Yeah. They explained why they were doing things.
Yeah. They didn't just make decisions and then
dictate them.
Yeah, they actually involved people in the process.
They got feedback.
Yeah.
They explained their reasoning.
Yeah.
And that made people feel
respected.
Heard,
valued.
Yeah. And it also made them more likely to support the decisions.
Even if they didn't agree with them.
Yeah. Because they understood why they were being made.
Yeah.
And they trusted that the leadership team had their best interests at heart.
Yeah.
And then, perhaps most importantly, they were transparent about their failures.
Yeah, they didn't try to sweep them under the rug.
They didn't pretend they didn't happen.
No, they talked about them openly.
They shared what they learned from them.
Yeah, and they used them as opportunities to improve.
Yeah, and that created a culture where it was okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, as long as you learn from them.
As long as you learn from them.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
It is.
Because everyone makes mistakes.
Everyone makes mistakes.
But not everyone is willing to admit them.
Yeah.
And learn from them.
Yeah.
And that's what separates the successful companies.
From the unsuccessful one.
Exactly.
And this transparency also extended to their customers and partners.
Yeah, they were upfront about challenges, delays.
Anything that might affect their customers.
Yeah, and that built a lot of goodwill.
It did.
Because people appreciate honesty.
They do.
They'd rather know the truth.
Even if it's bad news.
Yeah. Than be kept in the dark. Host speaker.
All right, so you're here. You want to get smarter about how the world works. You want to do that without, like, drowning in information.
Yeah, and you want to do it kind of quickly, too, right?
Quickly, yeah, absolutely. Exactly. So we figured, why not a deep dive into Rand Fishkin's Lost and Founder?
Good book.
It's a good one, and it's by, Rand Fishkin, the co-founder of Moz.
Yeah, a lot of people in digital marketing, especially SEO, really respect his work.
Yeah, he doesn't pull any punches. He's very straight talking.
Which is refreshing.
Yeah, it is. So that's what we're going to do too today.
Exactly.
So in this deep dive, we are going to pull out the most practical, the most useful